All right, and let's see. We are live here right now, and there might be a little bit of noise. I don't know where that's coming from, but anyway, good evening and welcome to Live with Ria. And I'm here in the shack. Well, not really in the shack. This is kind of like a living room kitchen kind of dealio. I really appreciate you guys joining me, and it's Easter Sunday. I know a lot of you have had dinner with your families and such like that, as have I. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time out. I will also say that it is the Jewish holiday of Passover. I know people observe that as well, so I'd like to also wish everybody a happy Easter and a happy, well, not, I don't know if it's appropriate to say happy Passover because of the nature of the observance. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. It's, to be honest, I think it's USB noise, but I could fix that in a hot minute. But anyway, yeah. So it is, you know, it is Sunday evening, and the holidays here. So happy Easter and Passover greetings. Let me see if I could say this correct. Chag Sameach, and then Lahaim to our Jewish brethren who celebrate, well, who observe Passover. And also it's Ramadan, so those of you who are of the Islamic faith, I have a few friends who are Muslim and they celebrate that as well. But anyway, and if you just, you don't have any holidays like that you celebrate, that's fine too. I like the warm weather. I like the weekend. I like hanging out, so yeah. So yeah, the audio is kind of I don't know. Let me see what I can do here. 1 2 1 2, and I look at my level meter here. Yeah, it's knocked down to almost nothing. Yeah. Oh, Digital Dreamer, that's cool. Yeah, you're a Buddhist. Okay. I had a very good friend who was a Buddhist. He unfortunately he perished in a motorcycle accident some years ago. He was a colleague of mine, really good friend of mine. We used to ride motorcycles and stuff like that, but he took up the sport bikes, and he, you know what they say about it's not the acceleration, it's the deceleration. So he unfortunately got decelerated by a truck in Washington, D.C. The funny thing is, Buddhists, apparently, they had 3 observations for his, his final rites. It was, one of them was where he lived, one of them when he was born, and one where he, was where it happened. And then what happened was he ended up they had a whole ceremony and the chants and such like that. So that was interesting. Yeah. So Easter was kind of interesting for me. I do the live streams at my church in New Jersey, Wayne, New Jersey, and because I chair the media ministry in the church, and I basically handle all their live streaming equipment. We have a new app in the App Store that we just released. So that's really interesting. So I was busy with that. I have to catch up on some of the Ham Radio live streams. I know some people said that Ham Radio Crash Course mentioned a few things. So I want to be sure I catch up on that as well, because I understand, if it's AWRL, even though, I'm not like everybody's AWRL representative, I still, like to bring things to the attention of headquarters and also the board of directors whenever I can. I'll tell you this, it's much appreciated that you guys provide the feedback you do. They had the whole big brouhaha this month was with the paper, because the AWRL printed the magazine on a different paper. And the paper, actually, it's not because, it's kind of, it's not kind of Yeah. Yeah, the volume. Okay. Yeah, so the paper issue was not so much one of, AWRL wanting to make the magazine cheaper. It's because of the thing that everybody is experiencing these days in some way or the other, supply chain. And supply chain, where we couldn't get our usual paper. And then what happened is, we had to end up going through a paper broker. And David Minster sent out a whole email about it. And, this paper actually cost us more money because, we had to go and specially source this paper. The magazine, we didn't want to not publish a magazine. So that's that. The shirt, if you're wondering, so I went to Polytechnic University in Brooklyn, New York, and this was kind of like when they were Polytechnic and not NYU Engineering. So I have a shirt. I wear it. So, I think this was from the basketball team or something. They have basketball team. Yeah. Yay. Okay. What else? Tomorrow's World Amateur Radio Day. I did a short little video for my friends at Oscar India, and they are going to be publishing that soon. So look out for that. Let's see here. The supply chain is really messing up everybody. So what can I say? Other than that, the kids had a good Easter. Last weekend I was in Denver, Colorado, like I mentioned. Denver, Colorado for an AWRL meeting. I had my whole adventure with Southwest Airlines and, and then we're going to worry about Dayton. So I put out a poll on Twitter about Dayton, and basically it said that, I'll see if I could bring it up here. My iPad's reading so on Twitter. But, so basically we're kind of trying to figure out whether those who went to Dayton in the past are finally over their, whether they're ready to go back out again, because, the okay. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. Whether we're a digital dreamer, that's funny. Yeah, I kind of let the amateur radio on the air. I kind of let the cat out of the bag with my last video showing RSGB. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna set the comments module up. My Chromecast was kind of lazy. Yeah, so so here's what's interesting. I put out a poll saying, are you going to Hamvention? Because I'm going to Hamvention as part of the AWRL contingent. I'll be there in the booth, but of course I'll be all over. I never, really just stay in the booth. Although I try to cover for the hardworking staff sometime because they need a break. And, I want to help them out. I'm probably just going to stick around development like I did last time. But I'm also going to be walking around talking to people, see, meet and greet and that kind of stuff. So what happened is I put out a poll asking if you've been to Dayton before, are you going back? And I was quite surprised that a lot of people said no. And I really want to know, is that the case? I mean, I understand the virus is a thing, but you know what? I think it's down to a level where it's not really that. It is, look, if you have underlying health conditions, and I've been a strong advocate of the measures and such like that we had, right? And, I've kind of been basically saying, well, if you are, if you stay home and you save lives, but let's see if this comes up here. Did my thing die? Oh, darn it. Okay. Oh, well, I just need to plug it in. But yeah, I've been always of the opinion that, even after we get rid of all of the measures and stuff like that, if you still don't feel comfortable, well, you know what? It's your right to basically, not feel comfortable, and, you could stay home or whatever. But I found initially I was talking with some of the folks at Flex Radio about a gathering, And then I found a lot of people said, well, they're not going. I'm like, what? Okay. And then they're like, yeah, we're not going. They don't think this thing is over. So it'd be interesting to see. Hamcation in Orlando was not, so that was my first year of attending Hamcation, by the way, ever. And I figured, well, you know what? Let me go and experience it for one time. And it was actually not that bad, and I kind of like, I went and it was, well, it was okay actually. And I figured, what, Dayton's probably going to be better. But, I know a lot of people are probably going to have a little trepidation. They're going to be figuring, well, you know what, this thing isn't over yet. But I really hope that, that this thing subsides enough that people go. I'll be staying at Hope Hotel, and that means I'm going to be in the DX and Contest suites for a very specific reason, being that I don't like to drink and drive. Meaning that I have a lot of friends and a lot of, energy. And of course, yes, I did get to meet T-Ray at, who's a big fan of this channel, T-Ray at Hamcation, of course. Yeah, so, I'll be staying at Hope Hotel at Dayton, and I'll be at the DX and Contest, super suites or whatever, hanging out there as I usually do. And if you want to come and hang there, there are other places to hang. I'll be at the AWRL donor reception because that's something we, it's not that we're kind of like, that they're going to fire us if we don't do it. But, it is always good to get, the pulse of those who contribute to the AWRL and talk to them and, answer their questions, meet and greet, and, just, show them that we're there for them, and that's one of the things, and show them that we appreciate that all they do. I met the Poda King. Which Poda King you talking about, Ham Radio Adventure guy? Who is that? Let me see here. So, yeah, Watch WX, I am high risk. Full disclosure, I'm diabetic, so, it's high risk for me. But at the same time, I took my precautions. I've taken the vaccine. Regardless of what you think of the vaccine, my personal preference is that I got vaccinated. Okay? And if whatever you believe, that's up to you. But anyway, so, I believe that protects me sufficiently to be able to enjoy somewhat normal life again. So we'll see how that goes. I really hate that I have to make that disclaimer because then people will jump on top of you saying, oh, this thing is bad for you. Anyway. All right. Let's see here. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about Shortwave Radio. So we're going to do a lot of talking, but I'm going to show you some things. And I'm going to have an announcement to make. Gosh, it's real interesting that the world of shortwave has really been kind of like, overturned recently because of this whole Ukraine thing. Thank you, Vladimir Putin, for being such a, all right, idiot. That's what I want to say. Okay. Let's see here. Where is it? Maybe I could airdrop it, Yeah. And, I really feel for the people of Ukraine. Look, I have a lot of friends who are Ukrainian. One of my early roommates, her boyfriend was Ukrainian. I think she married him. And then, when I came to the United States, and she married this Ukrainian guy. And, you know what? He was a quite nice guy. They're hardworking people. I love especially that they're in the hacking community, meaning hardware hacking. They deal with right to repair in terms of, what you want to call it, in terms of the John Deere tractors and such like that. So, you know, they're really really good people in many respects. I mean, you know, you could find bad things to say about anybody, right? But you know, I really hope and pray that that this whole thing will be over with and just a bad memory, because really we need to get on with life, and it's affecting everybody economically and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's kind of like we really need to get over that now. Right. So, as I said, shortwave radio. So, what exactly is a shortwave radio, right? So, shortwave radio, basically, if you've ever been on HF, you've experienced shortwave radio. But tonight we're going to talk about broadcast, okay? You know that you can broadcast on shortwave radio, where you listen to radio stations from foreign countries. And one of my first experiences with radio, yeah, the Ukraine farmers have been getting new equipment lately. I tell you, the farmers are they're really a bunch of really awesome people, you know? So, they're, you know, they just amaze me, right? I think they're going to be a real asset to everybody here. But yeah, no, they've been hacking the tractors. They've been, you know, towing the tanks and such like that. Real ingenuity over there. Yeah. So, yeah. So anyway, so shortwave, you know, shortwave started in the 1920s, right? Sort of like, but remember, you know, back in the early days, kind of like, the whole notion of long distance communications that we know today, like we have the internet, I have viewers worldwide on YouTube and such like that. You know, this was a really mystical and magical thing. Well, you know, I mean, back then it was, you know, like you were a sorcerer, right? If you could communicate overseas. I have a video on this channel documenting the early transatlantic tests, okay? And, you know, the transatlantic tests were where they, a bunch of radio amateurs in Connecticut and a bunch of radio amateurs in England, right, or Scotland, sorry, they decided to, you know, try to get a contact across the pond. And, you know, back then their radio equipment was really crummy, okay? And this was after the sinking of the Titanic, 1. 2, because the Titanic sank, the government never wasted a good opportunity. Never let a good crisis go to waste, and decided that, you know what, those amateurs, we're going to shove them in these useless frequencies 200 meters and down, okay? So they can have all that, and all the big ships, you know, that are like Marconi Wireless and all of these big wigs and, you know, commercial important people sending messages for, I guess, was it Wall Street back then, or the traders in the stock exchange? Well, you know, who cares? Important people trading commodities or just wealthy people, right? And maritime and ships and such like that they would you know, they would get priority. So they gave the amateurs the shortwaves. Well, the amateurs decided, you know what, we're going to try to make contact. Initially, that transatlantic test actually was on a you know, almost shortwave frequency. And they proved that they could make contact across the pond. Later on, all sorts of experiments and such like that, they were able to confirm that frequencies, you know, above like 3 megahertz were able to carry things long distance. Back in the old days, right, you really had, you know, a lot of attempts to broadcast far and wide. You had several attempts. You had, first of all, you had, I believe this wasn't first, but this was one of the attempts where WLW went to 500 kilowatts. So in Ohio, right, 700 WLW started up a 500,000 watt station, and they got FCC special permission. Of course, the whiny New York stations decided to shut it down because they couldn't get it either. and they were getting overpowered, and then it's like everybody wanted a piece of that, and the FCC said, you know what, go back to 50,000 watts. But they had 500,000 watts, and this was thing that'll make your hair stand on end. Okay, you have like these big mercury arc rectifiers and such. I wasn't there, but from historical accounts, obviously I wasn't there. So this was really interesting. But it wasn't just radio waves, right? They laid a bunch of international cables across the ocean, and these cables actually started to carry radio programming. Now, in Trinidad, where I grew up, there was actually a system called Ria Fusion, and I'm sure they had it in many other parts of the country, where a company, so in Trinidad and Tobago, we had a company called Ria Fusion. I think they were in many other former British colonies as well. And what they did was they ran cables down the street, right? They had hey Ron, that's true about the Russian ship. Yeah. They basically, like how we have cable TV now, okay? Cable TV's gone way advanced now. Back then, they had like a central room where they played audio programming and radio programming. Radio was the thing back then. The family gathered on a radio. Well, they had basically cable radio, right? So they had like a whole central office with, audio amplifiers. And they used 813 tubes, okay? So any of you know the 813 tube? It's a big tube like a glass bottle. And the filaments consume like 200 watts, I think, out of that thing. Okay, this thing was it was terrible. But they used that as an audio amplifier, and then they sent that down the street. What they would do is they would rent you a speaker every month. So you pay a fee to rent a speaker from them, and then they would hook you up from the street, and then you would get, radio programming piped into your home, and that was that. So a lot of companies tried extending that concept. They use undersea cables and such like that. And, that kind of worked, and it didn't work, and it was impractical, and, the cables broke, and the cables got water in them, and it was just terrible. This was long before fiber optic. Longwave was a thing, okay? So back then, when we didn't really know any better, we thought that longwave was it. So a lot of radio stations put, they had a few radio stations on the long waves. The problem with the long waves was the antennas are huge, okay? They're massive. And, even though a few remain in Europe today, it never really caught on in the Americas. And it kind of just, petered out. I mean, in the UK, I think, what do they have? Droitwich, which is their, the BBC long wave. I think that one's on its last legs, or it's going away or something like that. And it's just, the tubes are made of unobtainium. They can't make the tubes anymore, and they just want to shut it down when it dies. They bought up the last remaining stock of spares, and they just keep them. So eventually, broadcasters, found out that you could use shortwave radio. And, the broadcasting kind of like came out, around the time of the wars. And they really, began pushing that out. And during the wartime, it was essentially a really, really good way of sending propaganda. But let me show you what frequencies we eventually settle on today. Okay? Because this is important. Okay. And, yeah. I have to plug this back in. It's just me being forgetful. Okay. Yeah. So the frequency bands. Yeah. Okay. So, now they have a bunch of different bands. They have basically we know HF as 3 to 30 megahertz, right? But on shortwave, it begins from about 2.3 all the way up to about 26 megahertz, right? And It's really interesting here. 2.3 to 2.9, 2.495. It is one of the tropical bands, which is basically, they use that to broadcast in the or near the equator. And let's see here. I hope I didn't lose you guys. Okay, yeah, yeah, the tropical band. So this is from Wikipedia, by the way. It's just a convenient place to get it. Then you have 2.3 to 2.495 tropical band. That's 120 meters and 90 meters. 3.9 to 4 megahertz. And then you have 75 meters. So you notice that 75 meters at night, okay? Excuse me. 75 meters at night. Hey, Lawnmower. Nice to see you tonight here. 75 meters at night, 3.9 to 4 megahertz is actually shared with the amateur band. And you'll hear like some digital noise come up, which is actually shortwave broadcast. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Then you got 3.9 to 4 megahertz, right? 4.75 to 5.06. That's another tropical band. You got 5.9 to 6.2. So 5.9 megahertz actually was used extensively in the Caribbean. We had, when I was growing up and I listened to shortwave, the station I listened to the most was, well, one of the stations I listened to the most was the BBC World Service. And they had a relay station in Antigua, okay, the Caribbean island of Antigua. And they used to broadcast on 5.975 megahertz. So there are a few others. There's Voice of America. Although Voice of America destroyed a lot of their, they tore down a lot of their facilities. They're not really interested in shortwave broadcasts anymore. Let's see here. Then of course 7.2 7.6 megahertz, which is shared with the 40 meter band. And the 40 meter band, of course, as we know, so it didn't used to always be that way. It used to actually be shared from 7.1 all the way up. And that kind of, messed us up badly because at night we could not really use the band because we were among all those shortwave stations. Now we have a nice clear segment from 7.1 to 7.2 where we can work DX and talk to European stations and such like that. And other stations, quite easily because their broadcast stations cleared out. 9.4 to 9.9, that's 31 meters. So that's a very popular band. And that's because propagation on that is open very long to a lot of places, okay? And you have a lot of broadcasters, including some US broadcasters, which we'll talk about, right? They are actually on there. And then, you have the higher bands, which are used more so either for local, for local transmission. Because in some parts of the world, like in India, my friend Lauren Libby, W0LD, he's an international broadcaster. I believe he's, one of he's with Transworld Radio. He's one of their head people there. I think he's like the CEO or something, or CTO or some, I shouldn't say exactly because I might get it wrong. But he's definitely one of the big guys at Transworld Radio, which is a Christian broadcaster. And they deal with a lot of, radio missionary work, which we'll talk about. So, so they actually, a lot of these higher ones, some of them might be in India and some of them might be in Africa and such like that. So that's an overview of the bands, right? Now, let's see here. Let's talk about what else, power and antennas. So hey Bill, KF5EGK. I'm sorry I can't put comments on the screen tonight, but that's okay. So the power, actually, they have a wide range of power, but you find because they are international broadcasters that they're not using low power like 100 watts, 500 watts, or anything like that. No. They're going straight for, multi-kilowatts, right? We think 1.5 kW is a lot. Well, some of them start at 5 kW, which is a low power station. And then some of them go up to common power is 100,000 watts for some big stations, 50,000 watts for some of them. There are some of them that do 500,000 watts, and I believe there are some who do more than that. Okay, so I remember Lauren gave a presentation at Fairlawn Amateur Radio Club where he was showing some of the, the real hardcore stuff. I should bring him on really to talk about this too. But the real hardcore stuff that goes on in Bonaire at Transworld Radio in Bonaire. And as David Minster from the AWRL said that how TWR, they have a shortwave station in Bonaire. They are one of the largest consumers of electricity on Bonaire. That's mind-blowing, It's like, I mean, to run a 500,000 watt transmitter for hours a day at a time, okay? And, it's nuts. And I want to show you, 440,000 watt makeover. And then I'll show you, this is from Radio World. All right, and we're going to switch that here. Okay. Yeah, so TWR's Bonaire facility gets a 440,000. Can you imagine the 4 towers, okay? 440,000, right? That's crazy, Yeah, so they were 100,000 and they went to 440,000. And but they're on medium wave actually. So here's Lauren here. He's the president and CEO, right? He said they went on the air in 1963 at the 500,000 watt level, but the costs, and maintaining a high power tube tag rig, they cut back to 100,000. All right. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, they get, they're like I said, they're a Christian broadcaster, a religious broadcaster, so they do a lot of, they get a lot of people who support them for that. And yeah, it's really heavy stuff, big transmitters. Nortel, I don't think they're solid state. I think they're using still tubes for that power level. And look at this. This is not the RF causing that. That's just the air navigation lights. Okay, 500,000 watts, the most powerful medium wave. Now this is medium wave, by the way. Okay. But they still do some shortwave, and they do a lot of DRM, which I'll explain to you as well. All right, just thought I'd mention that. Yeah, that's a good point. The VOA station has been given tours for hams, and yeah, that's true. Ham radio adventure guy. Okay, no problem. Yeah, Baofeng 440,000 watt with a big, larger pure. Oh my god. Yeah, that's funny. Let's see here. Yeah. So, right. So they use a lot of power, right? They, and by the way, like I said, a lot of these international broadcasters are not only on shortwave, they do medium wave. I know the VOA used to do 1580 medium wave, and they used to actually even publish their program schedules in the local newspapers in Trinidad. Okay, so we used to see the VOA local schedules in the newspapers too. That was pretty cool to see. Now yeah, let me show you this one. The antennas here are just unreal. Yeah, if you look at this is a Sturba curtain array. This is one of the old VOA antennas. Okay, I think they kind of got rid of that whole thing. I think this is one that was in, correct me if I'm wrong, this was in South Carolina, right? And they just got rid of that, because the American government really didn't want to spend a lot of money in international broadcasting. So it's kind of terrible now. Now I'll show you another antenna, and we'll begin talking about U.S. private broadcasters. Okay, so a recent phenomenon really is in the realm of U.S. private broadcasters. Now, they've always been around, right? They've always been around. Like, you've had a number of different ones of these broadcasters. Like, I remember when I was growing up, and then, in the 1990s, even when shortwave was on its way down, there was a few radio stations, WRNO, they had just went off the air, Radio New Orleans. There was also WWCR. Now, WWCR was famous because they actually carried programming from Alan Weiner, who was a famous pirate radio broadcaster, meaning that he ran an unlicensed radio station. I think he ran it off a ship at one time. Okay, but he was just, he eventually bought airtime on WWCR, and he was running a program, and I used to listen to him, and it was really interesting what he had to say. He was very irreverent about a lot of things, but he was a free speech guy. Okay, you hear a lot of things in the news about free speech. Well, you know what? He was a real free speech guy, and he said a lot of things, and he supported a lot of free speech. So eventually he got his own radio station. And his radio station is WBCQ. WBCQ, they are in Maine, and the funny thing about shortwave licenses in the U.S. is that you cannot beam solely to a domestic audience. You have to beam to an international audience. So what they do is they set up shop in Maine and said, well, we're beaming to Mexico City. So if you look at a map of the U.S., you'll see that Maine to Mexico City pretty much beams all over the United States. Okay, well, this one now, actually, this wasn't the original antenna, but this one actually was acquired quite recently. This is an Amphigon big rotatable array. Previously seen, the only other one I've seen like this is in the Voice of Nigeria. An insert joke about Nigerian prince and money, okay? So the Voice of Nigeria, with all the Nigerian prince and their money, went and formed a radio station. I'm just kidding. No, Voice of Nigeria, they probably got it from like all their mineral wealth or whatever, and they kept it all to themselves, and instead of, feeding their starving people. But they actually bought one of these antennas, which cost millions of dollars, okay? And then, Alan Weiner, I'm disappointed, but I can kind of see why he did it, okay? And Ron, yes, I will get to the rotator in a moment, okay? So, Alan Weiner got the opportunity, so he hooked up with World's Last Chance Radio, right? And World's Last Chance Radio is, I don't really like to call them Christian, okay? Because I'm a Christian myself, and I don't like to associate with those kind of conspiracy theories. They're a flat earth conspiracy theorist group. They believe that the earth is flat, and that the Bible supports the theory that the earth is flat. Well, apparently they get enough people to donate to them so that they could buy this big radio station. So they financed this whole big tower, and this is also a 500,000 watt radio station. And to answer the question, does it rotate? Yes, the entire thing rotates. Do you know how much power you need to rotate this thing? Get ready, okay? I have a heavy-duty ProSystel rotator on the tower. That thing uses 24 volts DC, probably like 10 amps, I think. Is it? Probably, but I don't know. But it takes a fair amount of power to turn the antennas. You have other rotators like the prop pitch, a lot of power. This one takes 20 kilowatts, 20,000 watts to turn the antenna. Would you believe it? They have a whole, electric motor and, you know, a gearbox down there, and they could rotate this thing. You know, I want to show you a picture of the other place I saw it because, you know, it's really, you know, oh gosh, it's really interesting. I might have shared in one of the other live streams, but it bears repeating, right? There was a radio amateur I worked called 5N7Q. He also worked with the company that made that antenna, Ampegon, right? 5N7Q. He is Bodo. Let's see if I could find him. 5N7Q. I'll look in QRZ. Right? Yeah. DFA-DX. Okay. He probably took down the pictures of his antennas. But, yeah, it'll take a lot of solar panels. But truth be told, I think they're probably using natural gas and coal, you know, to power that. It's really hard to find. Voice of Nigeria antenna, you know. Who knows? I would have been scrap it because that would have been epically bad. Oh, yes. Here we go. Oh, yes. I need to show you guys this. Okay. So this thing here, okay, you see the antenna? Now this is the Nigerian one, okay? That's the one in Nigeria, right? And this is the antenna here. You see the antenna? But you know what you see below it? You see a crane, okay? Look at the size of that crane. You ever seen a crane in a truck up close? And that's the size of the antenna, right? And they put that thing in the ground. I don't know how much concrete they use because it looked like they use concrete, but my God, that thing is massive. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, so I thought I'd mention that. So, yeah, by the way, when I worked Bodo, he used the antennas to, you know, to actually work on that too. To actually make contacts. And I have them in my log, actually. So anyway, they use some big antennas, right? What sort of modes do they use? Well, most of it, as you would probably guess, is AM, right? Good old double sideband AM, like what you found in the AM broadcast band. Okay? And, you know, there is some single sideband, SSB, okay? Like what you're accustomed hearing on your HF radios. Now, the interesting about SSB is that one of the popular shortwave stations that not really intended for general, you know, reception, but it's out there anyway, was the Armed Forces Network, right? It used to be called AFTRS, Armed Forces Television and Radio Service, and they used to be basically broadcast into the troops, right? You know, I'm sure those of you who've been deployed overseas and such like that, and live on base, you know, you have access to AFN. I think now they give you like a satellite box or something like that, or they might have like an internet streaming box. I'm not sure, but they used to broadcast radio on single sideband, and they I think they shut some of their transmitters down, so they don't actually have that anymore. I believe they used to broadcast from Diego Garcia. And interestingly enough, the guy who put up my tower was a CB. So those of you who don't know what a CB is, a CB in the Navy is somebody who works on construction of bases and such, right? And he was a crane operator. So he came and, you know, when he retired from the military, he formed his own crane business, and he came and he put up my tower. So yeah, so Armed Forces Network was on single sideband. You could hear a lot of programming. You could hear, you know, stuff intended for the troops. I think they used to broadcast like football and other sports and talk radio and music and all sorts of stuff, you know. But that was on single sideband. They use let's see here, DRM. Okay, so DRM is a mode called Digital Radio Mondial, right? And DRM actually, it's kind of like, I don't know, you know, I don't know why it even exists, because to me it seems like it offers less advantages than it does disadvantages. Um, and But Lauren Libby, Lauren, he was kind of like, well, yeah, he's big into DRM. Um, in India, especially, there are a lot of like radio receivers in cars and such that have DRM. They pick up local AM and shortwave stations that have DRM. So basically, DRM is digital modulation, right? So it's digital. I think the signal is like 12 kilohertz wide or something like that. And then you have a DRM chip inside of the radio, or you could use a piece of software called Dream, okay? And I've used Dream to decode DRM. It's kind of a little bit of a square peg in a round hole, because you kind of have to hunt for the codec. And I'm trying to, there we go. Yeah, so Digital Radio Mondiale, association here, Dream software, right? And then it's a project on SourceForge, but it seems like it's kind of not really, maintained very well, right? Yeah. So let me find the main source, right? So Dream AM DRM receiver, you can see here, they have, like basically, you feed a single sideband signal into it, and then with a sound card, and then you can then take that and then decode actual audio, and the audio quality is actually quite good. It's not like, it doesn't sound like DMR, okay? Yeah, and it's actually quite good. I've actually used this a few times, but it seems all but abandoned, and a lot of people are having problems, especially on Windows. You get the libraries, and some of them are copyrighted, and you have to do all sorts of things, yeah. So, oh well, that's interesting there. All right, so let's see what else we're gonna cover here too. So some actually have what they call a shortwave. They actually some radio stations actually send data. They send one called shortwave radiogram, and the shortwave radiogram basically is like an information bulletin that's sent in data mode over radio. I'm not sure which radio station does it, but I know one of them does, and you get a data transmission decode on your computer. So let's talk about the equipment, okay? So as far as shortwave radios, right? And none of these are sponsors on the channel, with the exception of one of them, which is Redicus, right? And Redivis. And I actually reviewed a shortwave radio for them. So you can get all sorts of cheap shortwave radios. Right now, the cream of the crop really seems to be like the Texan radios. So if you look at like on Amazon, you have like Texan radios. Let me see if I could find them. And if you just want a shortwave radio that is just a portable radio, they sell like the Texan radios, and these are pretty good. I know ham radio crash course, Josh KI6NAZ, he had reviewed one of the CountyCom radios, which is pretty good. I probably want to get my hands on one someday. So, and yeah. But this one, look, this one has it all. This has FM stereo, it has long wave, it has medium wave, it has shortwave, it has SSB single sideband, so you can receive all those single sideband signals. It has a PLL synthesized receiver. It has a keypad and everything. So, yeah, so it has a lot of features, and but the CountyCom one seems really interesting. Now, let's say, you really don't want to buy a radio and you want to get your feet wet. Hey, Ham Radio 2.0, nice to see you there, and happy Easter. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so if you want to get on into shortwave without buying any equipment, you have a few choices, right? One of them is to simply get on WebSDR, okay? So WebSDR you could go on WebSDR.org, and then you can go and receive radio signals there without much of a fuss, right? And let me see if I could get on there. I'm going to see about the audio because I don't know. Let's see. Where's SDR? Okay, so I could hear WebSDR.org. Okay, and yeah, so you go on here, and yeah, yes, we get to HF radios in a second, right? And this is one I use commonly, the WebSDR at University of, I guess, 20, they call it, right? And here's where I put on my headphones to hear if anything is, let's see here. Okay, is that audio? There we go. Right, and then I can you can tune here. I'm tuning across a wide band spectrum here. Okay. So, yeah, I want to try 5085. The problem is I don't want to play music because, music will probably get me a copyright hit. But let's see here what they have. 5085 kilohertz, go. I'll play it briefly, and if it results in music, I'm going to kill it. Okay? Let's see here. Yeah, that one, this one in Europe is probably not going to yield us much. So let's go back and try one of them. There is one by K3FEF, I believe. Netherlands. NA5B, okay. Let's see, click to start audio. And let's see, 1500 kilohertz, nope. Let me see, 5085.0. Okay, right. Let me check the audio.
About 196 miles southwest of us.
Right, I don't want to play too much of that music because I don't know how much of that is going to result in copyright strike. But anyway, yeah, so you get the idea, right? You can log on to WebSDR, and you could tune across here. They have some of these actually have like the spots of what's playing and such like that on there. Okay, yeah, so yeah, it is useful. The only thing you got to be careful about is if you're doing DXCC or anything, you can't use a WebSDR in conjunction with your radio. But you know what? For fun, it's fine. Okay. Other ways you can get on shortwave. Your ham rig, as Joe Eisenberg mentioned, right? So I could get on my ham rig, my Smart SDR, my Flex radio. You can get it on your ICOM, your Kenwood, your Yaesu. Most, I would say nearly all recent ones have general coverage receive, okay? And, most of them have the ability to receive shortwave stations. And that's how I receive shortwave stations, to be quite honest, right? So let's see here. Let me see if I could log into like 7350. Yeah, it's kind of hard with these stations playing music because music will probably get me a hit here. And I'll just have to cut it out in post, but that's okay. But let me see here. 7290. Let's see here. Well, that one's not in English. So. These sound like music here. Yeah, that's music. Don't want music. There's a lot of these utility stations on there too.
From natural understanding of your mind, you didn't read it in books. You didn't get it from another man.
7490. Okay. That sounds like religious programming.
You've done. And then sometimes we do it belligerently and we do it willfully.
Yeah, that sounds like somebody
arrogantly,
preaching.
pridefully.
So,
I'm-
yep. So, yeah, so that is one of the, that's another way to get on, right? You can use these. Now, what else can you do? Okay. You have an old boombox, you know, remember those? That might have a shortwave switch on it. You could probably try those. And then Kenwood and Yaesu HT, some of them actually have shortwave built in. Like the VX5 has shortwave built in. All you need is a good antenna, right? And my Kenwood D74 actually has shortwave with SSB capability, so I can use that as a receiver. So what is that? You could also check the thrift shops. Some of them have shortwave radios. Check the Hamfests. A lot of them have shortwave radios, of course. Right? And you want to, you know, you could get on cheaply and easily. So who is on? Like I mentioned, it's state-owned broadcasters, propagandists, you know, and less so from Western countries. A lot of them shut it down due to budget. And you know, quite frankly, the information wars have kind of shifted to social media. But there's still a lot of shortwave being beamed to Africa and Asia, and from Asia. You have, like I mentioned, a lot of Christian or, you know, religious broadcasters. You have like a lot of evangelical Christian Pentecostals and such like that. They view this as a mission, right? And you know, some of them are actually they carry general interest programming and not just religious programming. Back in the day, I used to listen to HCJB, and they had like pen pals and such like that. And I got, I got a lot of friends through that, and kind of really stirred my interest in amateur radio. Vatican Radio, of course, they're Catholic broadcaster, so they have a lot of things. And of course, some of the staff at Vatican, they operate ham radio. So you know, I worked Vatican on 160 the other day. That was pretty cool. Private broadcasters. Okay, there's a number of them. Like I mentioned, Alan Wiener on WBCQ. There's WRMI. And there's the big one, WTWW. They're really interesting. And that brings me to my announcement. Okay, so I know you've been waiting for this, okay? So I've been talking with the friends at WTWW, Ted Randall and Holly and these people, and they're giving me a radio show. So I'm going to be on the radio, the shortwave radio, on 5085 from 4 to 5 p.m. Central, which is 2100 UTC on Saturdays on 5085. I really like to thank Ted Randall for this opportunity. It's a really good one. So I'll be sending them a show every week, and they're going to air it. And they're really excited. You know, of course, I'm going to plug ham radio and the AWRL, and it's going to be really good. I'm hoping to have some interesting guests on. Joe Eisenberg, you definitely better get on. We're going to talk. And then what else? You know, I'll probably also throw it up on the podcast platform, but this is going to be something really special. Of course, it does cost a lot of money to run shortwave, so if you feel that you want to help them out, you know, they have a PayPal link on their page, wtww.us. No obligation, but they do appreciate it. And Ted's a real stand-up guy. You know, he's always been supportive of the league, and he's always been, you know, a really good guy in support of what we do in amateur radio. Okay, so you can check them out here. They have a lot of good stuff, and you know, even if you want to send a message to Ukraine as well too, I send a message to Ukraine telling them how, you know, we're really rooting for them, and you know, we want this war to end. And you can tell the Russian people at how, you know, they don't believe in this war either. And you know, you tell Putin, don't say anything with any F or S or C words or something like that. You know which words I mean, okay? Because they can't air that, right? They'll take that out. So yeah, they're really good people. So, you know, we'll see how it works. You know, hopefully we'll be able to sustain this long term. But yeah, when Ted reached out to me, I was pretty good. So Brian, will I be taking callers? So here's the thing. So this is going to be pre-recorded, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to figure out if I'm going to do it in a particular time slot and take live callers. You know what? If I could probably swing a time where I could do it and then do live callers, maybe. That would be good, you know. Other than that, I could probably take some pre-recorded questions. I've seen what some of these guys do. You know, they take like an audio submission and, you know, Joe. Oh my God, Joe. Joe's funny. I'll tell you, I brought, you know, Joe came to New York, okay, in New Jersey. He was right at home, okay? I'm telling you. But, yeah, so, you know, it is what it is. But, no, I really appreciate all they do. So, you know, even if you could go on, they have some Facebook groups and such like that. If you want to tell them thanks and tell them you're excited, you know. And I'm also going to be on Ted's QSO radio show sometime to do an interview with him. He's going to, you know, he's going to give me the grand spiel. All right. So, you know, just to tie the ribbons on it, because we're kind of over time here. So what makes shortwave radio unique? You know, it's programming you can't really find anywhere else. It's uncensored, except, okay? It's uncensored, meaning that, you know, big tech cannot censor it, right? You broadcast people hear, and you really hear some really, you know, nutty stuff on shortwave radio, and you hear some good stuff. You don't need the internet. You don't need the man, okay? You do not need the man. And, you know, you really get a true taste of international broadcasting and internet and what people are hearing from different countries. One story I have, okay, in 1990, we had a group went and basically overthrew the government and tried to, you know, they basically did. T-Ray, wow. You know what, T-Ray? You are awesome. Thank you. 3346. Wow. I really appreciate it. T-Ray, you're going to be at Dayton, right? I owe you a drink, buddy. Okay. Yeah, Elon can buy that, okay? You know, I have a Tesla and I enjoy it's an older Tesla. And you know, I enjoy the car and such but I think Elon's a little nutty. But anyway, yeah, so you know, shortwave is thank you Country Fried Vegan. Wow, that's nice. That's amazing. Thank you. So for the super sticker, what is that? A thumbs up chicken or bird? Okay. Yeah, so yeah, you know, program without using the internet and you know, okay, you know what? I'm going to bring the kids to Huntsville. I'm hoping it'll be in August. So, you know, and the best thing is, you know, simple equipment. It's equipment you already have, okay? And even if you can't listen on air, you can listen online. So I'm going to upload my first show this week. It's going to be an intro into what we're doing. And then, you know, it's going to be weekly, and we're going to see how it goes. I'm going to try to bring in some guests. You know, if you guys have a time, I'm probably going to put out something on the YouTube channel, and we're going to see, you know, what's going on in terms of probably getting some callers on. But I'm really excited about this, okay? All right, guys. Well, you know what? On that bombshell, we must end. Yeah, I totally ripped that line from Jeremy Clarkson. But who cares anyway? All right. So until then, next time, thank you all. Thank you all for the support of the show. You guys are awesome. Okay. And happy Easter and, you know, happy Passover, I guess. And happy Ramadan and happy spring, even though we're getting snow tomorrow. Okay. We'll see. Peace in 73s. And are we going to play this awesome outro? I don't know. It's kind of misbehaving itself. Oh well. Bye-bye.